You know, in Normandy, you had a stench of death in your clothes that you slept in. You're spitting all the time. Some guys chew tobacco. Some guys got their hands on liquor somehow. And when you're seeing bodies every day, like your age, and you look at the condition that many of them are in, you don't forget that.
You are about to embark upon the Great Crusade.
To meet this mounting aggression.
And make no mistake about it, good will prevail.
I was born June 16th, 1925, in Boston, Massachusetts. And we moved to California when I was 9 years old, 1934, in a 32 Chevrolet. 9 people, mother, father, 7 kids. We didn't stop for food or motels. We slept in the car. We pulled a flatbed trailer. Before we left, we visited the relatives, the Italian relatives. Oh, you're going to die crossing the desert, no water. I was a frightened little boy before that. I was a nervous little kid. You want me to tell you why? Yeah. Okay. We were at a funeral for my little cousin Teresa, 8 years old. And my mother, who had lost her voice before this, it suddenly came back to her when they were lowering the casket of Teresa. She screamed, "Teresa," as they're lowering the casket. I'm just a little 5-year-old. I had a fear of death after that for a long time. There's another incident, my grandfather, they had wakes in the homes. So I went to the wake in a home in Boston, and the casket was in a bay window, and it was open, and I was standing very close to him, about from here to that wall. Everybody in the kitchen speaking Italian, English, laughing, crying, drinking, eating. I was a bewildered little kid, so I had that experience when I was 5, and again 7 with death. And so that's why I was a nervous little kid. On the way to California, 2 of my brothers drove. One was 18, the other one I think was 20, and my dad, and in a 32 Chevrolet. This was in 1934. So my dad lost a lot of property during the Depression and had all he could do is scrape up that money. My grandfather, his father, kept saying, "Go to California. Money grows on trees there." So anyway, we did. Okay, I got drafted in October of 1943. And I tried to get in the Air Corps. I wanted to be a pilot. My brother was a pilot. My brother-in-law was a pilot. It looked like a very glorified thing to do. And so I went down to sign up. My eyes were 20/22, and I flunked. He told me, eat a lot of carrots and come back. I was working at Douglas Aircraft on SBD dive bombers. I get in the cockpit of these airplanes and say, "Oh my God, I'd love to fly one." Anyway, that didn't help. Second time, still flunked. I cried. The doctor said, "Well, just think, maybe you get killed being a pilot." They sent me to Cheyenne, Wyoming in the winter. As I arrived there, I had the flu. I was in a hospital there about a week. When I found out I was going to be in Graves registration, I thought, what the hell is that? I don't like the word graves. But they made us feel like we were going to have a white-collar job, staying in hotels and stuff. Well, the training was a regular infantry basic training in the winter of November, December, January, February. Cold, windy. We did all our basic in that weather. We also were sent to Denver to a hospital called Fitzsimmons. It's no longer there, I don't think. But anyway, we were sent there to toughen us up mentally, to see an autopsy. And I stood in the back of the room while they were sawing this guy's head open, you know, and the coroners had white smocks. It was just before lunchtime. So that's the mental training we had about bodies. So,
what were you thinking about this time? About all
what was I thinking about?
Yeah.
I was thinking about, I can't do that. I can't be around dead bodies. So what I did, one day, luckily, next to us was Fort Warren Air Base. We were at Fort Francis E. Warren, Fort Warren next to us. One day, recruiters came over, recruiting for the Air Force. Guess what? They lowered the eye requirements to 2030. Nobody knows that except me. 2030, because I told them I can't pass. I'm 2022. Oh, no, 2030, no glasses. So I took the physical, a whole deal, had to write home the teachers for references. Anyway, they accepted me. They notified my company commander, and he hit the ceiling. So guess what he did? I was in the 610th Graves registration, and so he moved me out of there, sent me home on furlough. When I came back, the 607th Graves registration was readying to go overseas, and they were short one guy. I was a replacement. I got on that ship. All the guys were older than I was. They're all kidding me. Don't worry, Ciampa, they're going to turn the ship around and take you home. Roosevelt said, no 18-year-olds will set foot on foreign soil. That's in a speech. And so I got kidded quite a bit. So now I was part of the 607th. And they broke up our company into 4 platoons and headquarters, 124 guys altogether. And they sent us to Bristol. And the other guys went to different places. Now I want to tell you something, my first escape with death. You ever hear about Exercise Tiger? A German E-boat stationed in Cherbourg, France, torpedoed, sunk 3 of the 4, 800 guys. We lost 18 of our guys, first lieutenant, first sergeant, all the non-com commissioned officers, and they were all killed except 6 privates. But anyway, if they had selected my platoon, I wouldn't be here talking to you now. That was my first escape with death. Second escape was on a ship going to Normandy. We're down in a hold. You know what a hold is, where we keep equipment. No. We're sleeping down there the night of the 5th. And in the middle of the night, there was a huge explosion. Our ship just rocked like crazy. We all scampered up on deck and found out what happened. There was a Navy gunner that shot down a torpedo plane. That was the explosion. That Navy gunner was 19. I had met him during the day, found out his name, what he did, took me into his quarters to show me where he lived in the galley and all that. Dennis Reed from Ohio. If he didn't shoot that guy down, I wouldn't be here now. We did hit a mine cable, but that was no big deal. The ship just rocked a little bit. I wore a May West life preserver and a belt both. I couldn't swim, and I didn't want to take any chances. Not that swimming did you any good over there, and I'll tell you why. Because when we finally landed there, amongst, I've heard 4,000 ships. That's what the LA Times said in their headline. In fact, I have that plaque on my wall in my office. 5,000 ships. They say 4,000. Whatever it was, 4,000 or 5,000 ships. There were a lot of ships out there. We were anchored, when we got there, broadside to shore. And I thought how stupid that was, because we was a big target. And they were shooting the 88s, the artillery, hitting ships all over the place. Saw a tanker blow up, bodies in the water, debris in the water. We all got on the standing next to the bulkhead opposite shore. Hopefully get some protection if his ship got hit. So the ship was listing in the water like this. I don't know how long I did that. Seemed like days. But I don't know how long, maybe an hour or 2, I don't know. All I know is I knew there was a war on. And so anyway, now it was our turn to go down a rope ladder. Did we practice a rope ladder? No. Did guys fall off and drown? Yes. So I got in a rope ladder, and look, I'm scared to death. And I get in that. I think I was sitting in a Jeep. Going in, the artillery's, we could hear it going over it. we could see ships getting hit all around us. Went in, turned around, came out. Went in again, turned around, came out. I figured it was because the guy driving that thing thought we were going to get hit. Well, I blacked out from fear. I don't actually remember the landing. But one of our first jobs, our job was to clear the beach of the dead, pick up the dead on the beach, pick up the paratroopers that landed in the channel in error, that drowned because their parachutes came down over them with all their gear on, they drowned. So we picked up those guys, and we picked up guys on the beach. And we had black service troops digging the graves. Then when we got the prisoners, they were digging the graves. And then we had prisoners the rest of the war digging graves. And they thought they were, in Normandy, they thought they were digging their own grave. And these guys would say, oh, me Czech, me Polski, me this. And they were telling the truth because, the Germans conscripted a lot of guys in the countries that they took over, and they had to go in the German army or else. We buried them with one dog tag on their body in the dirt, 6 feet down, and one on a wood marker. I handled bodies 18, 19, 20. I broke down about 2 weeks after. In Normandy, you had a stench of death in your clothes that you slept in. You're spitting all the time. Some guys chewed tobacco. Some guys got their hands on liquor somehow. But we did that every day for 11 months, except one day in Paris. That was like the end of the war. That was a break. Other than that, seeing bodies every day. And when you're seeing bodies every day, like your age, and you look at the condition that many of them are in, you don't forget that. And then we left Normandy. The last cemetery we had there was in St. Lo. But that's when I saw the Patton come through with his tanks, because they landed at Cherbourg, the port. And boy, it was great seeing them. And while we were there, the 8th Air Force, and not to condemn them, but in their bombs, they killed General McNair. We picked up his body. I didn't personally, but we did. So anyway, from St. Lo, we went to Paris. So Paris was liberated August 44. And so we were there we went right through Paris when all the action was going on, people with flowers, and it was like the war ended. And we were in this little town called Solaires, about 40 miles south of Paris. So we had a temporary cemetery there. And then from there, we went to Belgium. And we went through Charleroi, and went through Namur, and we had a cemetery called Foss, F-O-S-S-E-S, temporary cemetery there. That temporary cemetery is no longer there, I don't think. So we left there, and we went to Henri Chapelle. Almost had a little... Henri Chapelle. Henri Chapelle is the second largest cemetery over there. Actually, Normandy is not the largest. The largest was St-Avold, which is just inside France from Germany. That was the largest, and Henri Chapelle was about the third largest. When we left Henri Chapelle, temporary cemetery, we had 17,300 buried there. We went into Germany from there. When the war ended, the cemetery we had at Eisenach, Germany, those bodies were only buried there for maybe a month or so. And we had to re-identify those bodies that would be disinterred and re-identified by looking at the dog tag. They're buried in mattress covers. The bodies are already decomposed, maggots all over them, terrible stench. And put them in boxes, and they were shipped to Belgium or Holland to be buried again in a temporary cemetery, in the dirt again. They didn't get in a casket until 2 years after the war, which was 1947. And at that time, the next of kin had a prerogative of having that having the remains sent home to any cemetery they wanted at no cost to them, or remain there. The ones that they're looking in those permanent cemeteries, they figure that's all that was killed. No, that's 40% of what was killed. The other 60% were sent home when the next kid, as I said, requests a cemetery for them to be sent to. They're put in lined caskets, just like the guys are put in now, except the guys now getting killed, they're embalmed and they're put in their uniforms and they're sent home so the next kid can actually see the body. But with us, it's just bones, so they, that's all they get. What I talk about is understanding the high price of freedom. And the only way you could really understand it is doing what I and other guys like me and even the medics, what we did in my company, we buried 75,000. That's not just Americans. We handled the Germans dead too. We put them in separate temporary cemeteries. You've got to see it. And then you understand the high price of freedom. Other than that, it's just a term.